The next hadith, which is related by Imam Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah and Imam Ahmad, hadith number 225. من تعلم علما مما يبتغى به وجه الله لا يتعلمه إلا ليصيب عرضا من الدنيا لم يجد عرف الجنة يوم القيامة. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever seeks knowledge, actually that knowledge by which the pleasure of Allah is sought, meaning sacred knowledge. So this particular hadith will not relate to anything else, meaning any other type of knowledge, worldly knowledge as such. Because the virtue in this sacred knowledge is what makes it so special. So you don't want to be doing it for the wrong reason. So if somebody is using the virtue of this sacred knowledge, the one by which the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sought, only to acquire some worldly gain, he will not smell the fragrance of paradise on the Day of Judgment. Meaning, he's still a Muslim, everything is still there, he's still a believer, but there's some shortcoming there. Not smelling the fragrance of paradise means that you won't even get close. Because normally, the fragrance of something could be smelt from a distance. So saying that you won't even smell it means that you won't even get close. And that is quite a warning. Now, what's a question that could arise here is many scholars, especially nowadays, as opposed to in the early days, well, even then they were paid by the awqaf, which means the endowment funds that people have set up. They were still being paid. There's very few ulama who work without pay, right? Throughout history, it's very difficult, unless you have your own business. For example, I just spoke to a scholar several days ago, and mashallah, the family has a great business. And there's one or two brothers who are not ulama. They run the business, but they all get paid. Because maybe the father had started the business. The father is also a scholar and two of the brothers are scholars. So even though they may be acting as a teacher in a madrasa, they may be doing, leading salats and prayers and as an imam in a mosque and as a director, they're not employed as such for payment. Because they've got their own resource. But not everybody can do that. And that's why initially, especially in the Hanafi school, it was actually prohibited to take payment for any religious service. According to the original Hanafi school, it's prohibited to take payment for leading salat and for any religious practice like that has to be done as a ritual. However, later on, the ulama looked at the situation that there were no longer very good awqafs or endowments that would take care of scholars. Because before, wealthy people, religious people, righteous people, they would make these endowments, these kings, these rulers, these khalifs, these governors, they would set up these endowments. The Mamluks, the Seljuks, the Abbasids, they would set up these endowments that, okay, in this endowment, somebody's going to administrate this endowment. I mean, colleges do that nowadays. Harvard, Princeton, these places, they have these major endowments. But it's essentially what it is that somebody's given them a huge amount of money, or they've developed, gathered a huge amount of money, and they're now investing it. So there's somebody who's doing the investments of these things, and then the whole setup is running through that. So they're kind of self-sufficient in a sense, but it's an ongoing process. So what it could be is that, okay, this is an endowment, this is a building that's dedicated for this. This is a piece of land, any produce from here, any profits that come from this land or this business will go to the ulama of this madrasa, right? Or will go to the ulama of this city. So there used to be numerous endowments like that. But later ulama saw that these things weren't as prevalent as they used to be, so then they allowed that people be paid for these activities, for these duties as such. The Shafi'is, in the Shafi'i school, it was fine from before to be paid for religious activities like that. Now, in this case, what we're speaking about here is whoever seeks that knowledge by which the pleasure of Allah is sought only to acquire some worldly gain, he'll not smell the fragrance of paradise. What happens when you are employed somewhere? As a teacher, for example, even teaching Islamic studies, or you're a teacher in a madrasa teaching something else, or you've just gone somewhere, studied knowledge, and now there's nobody else in your community more qualified than you, and you are told to go and give khutbahs and you're going to be paid as an imam, for example. Or whatever the case is, you're told to teach a class once a month, once a week or something, and you're going to be paid for that. So, on the one hand, let's just say that you have to teach a class on a particular subject which you don't have much knowledge about. You can go and research it. You have some knowledge about it, but for you to develop a class, that you'd have to go and look into the commentaries, you'd have to go and research. Right? Let's just say you were told to teach a class on the laws of purity. There's very few people who can just sit down and start teaching. Most people are going to go and have to look at their notes from the classes that they had studied. They're going to have to refresh their knowledge. They're going to have to go and look for other possible questions that might arise so that they're prepared to respond to them in the class. So essentially you're really learning all of these things to hold this class, right, which is going to become part of your livelihood. Because you need an income, you've just been employed, you've just been appointed as this teacher, but you're going to be paid for that. Now, what is the purpose of your knowledge? Are you only studying these things just purely for the sake of teaching this class? Why are you teaching this class? Is it only to earn a living? Right? Is it only to make some money? So all of these factors will play into how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would see this. I think the best intention in these kind of things is that if you are what they say manhumun fil ilm, there are two people who the Prophet ﷺ said will never be satiated. One is the person who's after wealth, and the other one is the person who's after knowledge. You will want knowledge until the last day. Never be satisfied with it. He's greedy for knowledge. If you're one of those people, then you're probably fine. Well, you're not completely fine because there are other intentional hurdles that you have to deal with, but at least you're not doing it just for that class. You like knowledge, you want to study, you probably wanted to study that topic before. Right? For example, when I'm when I'm invited to give a speech, I really don't like it when they say you can speak about whatever you want. That's probably the most difficult thing, because I hate to just speak about the same thing over and over again. I don't normally like to do that. I like them to give me a topic, give me a challenge, I'll go and research it. Because when you go somewhere and somebody's inviting you to talk, they know more about what's needed in that area than what you think you need. You may be speaking about, for example, a topic which they've just had covered last week, or it's already been covered, a whole course has been done on it. So you'd rather that they tell you to do something, and you have to go and research it and prepare it for that purpose. I think that's always better. So now, if you are interested in learning new things all the time anyway, so you don't have to worry about that, you're not going to learn it just purely for the sake of being paid for it. So the intention should be that I am helping myself and these people. I'm increasing my knowledge so I can become better, and I can help these people, because it's woman da'a ila Allahi wa amila salihah, that the person who's inviting to Allah. Whatever you teach of sacred knowledge, it's going to be that invitation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Who is there better than the one who invites people to Allah? This is a method of da'wah. Although you're speaking to the converted, but there's always a level higher. There's a never-ending hierarchy here. So yes, you're not speaking to people who are totally off the track necessarily. You may be talking to people who are there purposely for that knowledge, but still they're there because they don't know, they want to improve, they want to increase, they want to enhance themselves. So you're still inviting people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That should be your intention. Even though a secondary intention is there that inshallah by this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also give me some livelihood. The purpose should not be that I'm going to take that one up because that pays a lot more money. Now, there is a bit of a dilemma here in the sense that, let's just say you do need the money, you have to survive. And some da'is, they're not well off. I mean, many da'is are not well off. So you need the money. And one place wants to pay you, but it's not going to be enough for you to survive. The other place, well, that's fine. But your intention primarily, and this is something you have to consciously do. Because when the money is there and it's important for you, then you have to subdue that. Because the money is going to come anyway. Because that's not in your contract. Meaning your intention is not in your contract with those people. Your contract with the people is that I'm going to teach for this long, this is what we're going to cover. That's your contract with them. It's now the contract between you and Allah that really matters most. So once your contract is made with the people, your intention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be straight. And the intention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that, oh Allah, I'm doing this for your sake. I did not gain this knowledge to earn money with, but this is one method of me doing my work, being in a good environment, and also gaining some benefit for myself, benefiting other people inshallah, and making my living. But the primary intention should be pure. And regardless of what your intention is, your money is going to come in because you've taught the class. So there's no need to make that your primary intention between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that is already contracted. That's already agreed upon in terms of what you're going to make. The difficulty comes is that if you're those who are speakers who go and are invited to different places, sometimes people want to pay you something. In fact, some places actually say, how much is your honorarium? How much will you charge? And some speakers who do this and they don't do anything else, they are quite, they will say, and they have permissibility for that, that this is how much we charge because it's going to take us a whole day to come out and do this fly and come out, and so on and so forth. And there's other people that will say, well, you just pay our travel cost. If you feel like you want to give us something, it's up to you or not. Then it depends on your intention at the end of the day. Right? If that's how you want to do it, then it depends on your intention. Now, if you go to some places and they pay you, some places pay you, some places will not pay you anything. The test will be that if the place that doesn't normally pay you any honorarium as such, without you asking for it, will you go back there or not? If they invited you again. So why are you going there in the first place? And will you go back there again? So the intention should not be any of these things as the primary intention. Hassan Basri, rahmatullahi alayhi, once saw a man performing some tricks on top of a hill. And he said, he is better than some of our colleagues, because at least he is earning his livelihood through these worldly tricks. Whereas our colleagues, they are acquiring the religion, they are acquiring this world through their religion. People he knew who he thought were just studying sacred knowledge just to get people to pay them. Because maybe through gifts or endowments or whatever the story was. That's why it's related by one of the great Balkhi scholars, who he saw a beggar with his hands outstretched reading the Quran. You go to places like Egypt and other places, you'll actually see this. The guy with a beautiful voice, he's reading like Sheikh Qari al-Basit, right, Abdul Basit. And he's by the subway station or something like that, and people are paying him. You got in the London Tube, you've got guys who come up with their guitar and start playing guitar, and they've got their guitar case open, people are throwing money in there. So it's something like that. It's a very bad thing to do, that you read Quran to earn your living with like that. So what he did was he took some dust or something and he went and put it into his hand. He said, this is totally wrong, you shouldn't be doing this. We don't know the person's intention though. If the person is not outstretching his hand and just sitting there reading Quran, because that's the only thing you can do, sometimes they're blind, that may be a different story, and people are just paying him, maybe a different story. It depends on the intention. We can't judge people's intention, but sometimes it just looks off. While it is impermissible to do the work of the hereafter for acquiring possessions of this world, such as teaching hadith to win the hearts of men, it's not blameworthy, according to the scholars, to acquire the world in a lawful way, to free oneself for the work of the hereafter. And it says he will not smell. That is considered an exaggeration to deter a person from doing this. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive a person for another reason and send him to paradise. It's not that he's going to be deprived of paradise forever. It may be that initially he can't go there, such a person, and then go afterwards. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us ikhlas in whatever knowledge that we have and in the way we disseminate our knowledge.